dangerous to administer exogenous HGH? Let's take a look and see what we can find out today. So we're going to look at the bro myth. I'm sure everyone's heard at some point in your life, maybe on YouTube, take as much as you can afford. Okay, I'm going to tell you what I think about that. Then what's the lethal dose of HGH? How much you actually have to take for it to kill you? And then could you even afford to take that much for it to kill you? Then there is a reported dose of HGH overdose. We're going to look at it. And then we're going to look at the takeaways from all this too. So the first thing is the bro myth. Take as much as you can afford. I sort of agree with this. Like, it's sort of a great idea if you're a pro or on the cusp of becoming a pro. Now, if you're just someone at the regional level, if you can't win it overall at the regional level without HGH, then you should probably just quit bodybuilding, okay? So like a healthy dose of HGH, one that you should really have no issues of worrying about anything, is 1 to 2 IUs a day, first thing in the morning or before bed, whenever you want, really. But taking as much as you can afford, I mean, some of these guys are looking at 15, 20, 30 IUs a day. All right, that's when we have some issues, okay? But yeah, I mean, in theory, as much as you can afford, I get it. If someone's really wanting to push the envelope, that's on you, all right? But this is what you got to think about. So water retention and mineral retention from HGH is like, it's hard to even explain it unless you're someone that's taken 4+ IUs and tried it just one time, the first time you try it. It can screw up a lot of stuff, all right? So if you want to mitigate some of that stuff, you want to take an ARB, an angiotensin receptor blocker. That's going to take care of a lot of that water retention you're going to get from that. And then the other thing on top of that is HCTZ, which is hydrochlorothiazide, just a diuretic, right? And that's not one you're going to take all the time. The ARB you want to take the whole time you're on HGH, okay? And then this diuretic, take it as it's needed, all right? So if you kind of get some water retention that's above and beyond what the ARB can take care of, that's when you would implement the HCTZ. And it's going to take care of that for you almost instantly, okay? Now, when you're on HGH, even if you're just taking that 1 to 2 IU range, you still need to check your blood pressure, okay? Because that water and mineral retention, your blood pressure is probably going to go up. And it's one of those things that as soon as you take that hydrochlorothiazide, your blood pressure is going to come down to the normal range. So just keep that in mind. Okay, LVH and organ and cardiac remodeling. So the big thing with HGH is that it's able to remodel organs, essentially, mainly your heart. That's the one you're going to see a lot of data on. So like if you're, let's just say you're on a lot of gear, your heart rate's up, your blood pressure's up, you're putting a lot of stress on your heart. Okay, so when you're putting that stress on your heart, when you add something like HGH to it, your heart's going to be like, oh, okay, well, I got this stuff, so I'm just going to remodel, as in get bigger. So we don't want that. And it can do that to any organ in your body if there's enough stress on that organ. There's tons of data on the heart. I might make a video on that later, but that's something to keep in mind. Next, would you even know if you were taking too much? You should know now because I'm telling you what to expect. But if you were taking too much, would you actually know? I mean, this is how you would know, right? Check your blood pressure, the water, all that stuff. Keep it in mind. And then the last thing is it's not magic, all right? For some reason, I don't know if it was Dorian Yates talking about it, Ronnie Coleman, who it was talking about this stuff, but it's just not magic, man. It's really not. Like, if you have normal genetics like me and 99% of you guys watching this, it's not going to take you to like that next level that you think. The way you need to look at it is like, listen, we have a ridiculous amount of information on HGH. It's one of the most studied hormones in existence. It's in your body. Like the exogenous HGH that you take, your body knows what to do with it, okay? It has all these downstream cascades to prevent anything too crazy from happening unless you really push the envelope. So think of it as just a healthy add-on, all right, in that 1 to 2, maybe 3 IU range. But when you start pushing the envelope, I know you guys think it's magical and all this crazy stuff is going to happen. You add insulin on it. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Like there's some crazy stuff that can happen, but it's not just going to take off the myostatin like crazy to the point where you're just building muscle over muscle and you're putting on 50 pounds of muscle in a year. Okay, keep in mind the best bodybuilders in the world, a full off season, the absolute best they can do is like 25 pounds of tissue. And that's like rare for a pro bodybuilder, okay? So it's not going to do that for you. I almost guarantee it. So keep that in mind. So what's the lethal dose? So an LD50. Okay, that is the amount of material given all at once, which causes the death of 50% of a group of test animals, all right? So the LD50 is a way to measure the short-term poisoning potential, aka acute toxicity of a material, And they do this with rats and mice, usually. You'll find a lot of studies with rabbits. I've even seen a couple with some chickens in there. But this is just, this is just in theory. This isn't exact numbers that you need to like set in stone. This is just to get you thinking about what it takes for something to happen in animals and what it could take for a human. Now, there's definitely a lot of LD50s for humans, like tested on humans, like this for a fact, but like a lot of these are just kind of in theory. So these are some LD50s of some stuff that we use as bodybuilders and athletes. Okay, caffeine, clenbuterol, insulin. So I'm going to do a couple videos on clenbuterol and insulin because those are very interesting as well. But if you look at this, some of these LD50s, like the growth hormone somatropin, 828 milligrams per kilogram. Now, I think this one was in a mouse, if I'm not mistaken. So that's almost 2,500 IUs, which equivalent to a 200-pound dude is over 200,000 IUs. Now, that's what this says. Let's see if that's true. So I'm going to show you guys a case where a dude took 900 IUs, 900 of HGH all at once. And it killed him. Like, it's a long, drawn-out, painful death. This is not like a just instant you're dead. This dude really went through it. Like, I feel bad for him, man. This was rough. So if you're wondering how much 900 IUs is, that's about 25 genotropin 12 milligram pens, or that's about 30 norditropin pens, or 8 to 9 kits of generic HGH. So the first thing you guys are thinking, I thought the same thing, is like, how in the hell could this guy afford it? Like, so there's no way he did the genotropin pens. There's no way he did norditropin. So he probably did generic HGH. Now, I don't know. Honestly, I feel like there's some kind of mix-up in here when it comes to actually how much he used. 900 IUs. I just don't think that's possible. I mean, that's going to cost minimum $1,000 for generic, and that's like cheap generic. So $1,000 to $2,000, and he did it all at once. I don't know. But anyway, the point of this is, if that's true, and I don't know if that is, that's 0.4, not 4%, 0.4% of the reported LD50 that we got up here in this chart. It's like, what I'm saying is, we have this chart and these LD50 theories out there that are on mice and rats, but obviously you can't take that more than a grain of salt. That's just to get your mind thinking, because 0.4% of the LD50 killed this dude. All right. So here's the case study if you want to look it up. This one is actually very interesting, and the way this one's worded is not like over your head. Like, you're gonna be able to understand this pretty easy. So it's a 20-year-old dude, no past medical history, and he was reported to using 30 injections of somatropin, and it says 10 milligrams at 1.5. So if that's actually exactly what comes in the norditropin pens, so I guess they're saying he used 30 norditropin pens. That's crazy. So he used it for enhancing his performance for an upcoming competition. All right. And he's been using the somatropin for 2 years, which this is like blowing my mind. A 20-year-old is taking 30 pens, and he'd been using it since he was 18. Like, when did this come out? This was November 2022. This is crazy. Like, I can't even believe this. So his initial vital signs, blood pressure was 145/96. I guarantee you that went sky high through the roof. And by reading this, you can tell it did. What else we got? So you can look at some of his other stuff. His phosphokinase, this was robustly high. And this shows that he was going through rhabdomyolysis, which I don't understand how that would happen, but I guess anything's possible when you're abusing something like HGH. Some other stuff you can see, his left atrium abnormality was according to that. Okay, so his O2 level dropped within hours, and he had to be intubated. My take why his O2 dropped was essentially, I don't know, man. I mean, I guess he had so much water and mineral retention that, like, it was probably as if his kidneys were working, but nothing was happening. The HGH was just like holding on to it all, to the point to where his lungs were just filled up and were not even working, or he just wasn't able to breathe on his own. It's like he was suffocated and couldn't even move, maybe. I'm not sure. So yeah, they were really worried about his lungs, you can see, and they wanted to do a chest CT scan, and it looked like he had pneumonia, which makes sense. I guess all that water retention, it just leaked into his lungs probably. And then you can see he had some hypertensive crisis during this admission, so his blood pressure, like I said, went through the freaking roof. They administered some antibiotics. No changes on the 6th day of admission. So they've been there for 6 days. Oh gosh, what else? So they had the suspicion of a pulmonary embolism, which makes sense. It probably happened way before the 6th day, but I guess so. 6 days. So they're looking at this, and then the next day, so they weren't able to do it. He was in such bad condition they were not able to do a test for the pulmonary embolism, taking a CT. They couldn't do it. So the next day, he had a cardiopulmonary arrest, and then they tried to resuscitate him, and then they couldn't do it. They tried for 40 minutes, and just didn't work. They declared him dead. So this dude lasted 6 days. And like I said, this is like a terrible 6 days. He was awake. I mean, he knew what was going on. And it was freaking terrible. Like that's a horrible way to go out, man. And then, like they said, as far as they know, this is the first lethal case of HGH acute toxicity. And considering the amount of GH and the extent of the severity, yeah, it happens. And like this is, like it says at the bottom, they're confronted with complications of HGH misuse. Thus, the public awareness about its deleterious side effects should be raised. Yeah, and they're totally true. Like a 20-year-old kid has no reason to take HGH in the first place. More or less, I have no idea how he afforded this much HGH. Like, how rich are you, kid? Like, that's crazy, dude. So here's the takeaways, man. So in this case, he had administered 900 IUs supposedly. I would hope they did some kind of fact checking to back that up, but that's crazy. And like I said, that's like 9 generic kits, and that's a ton of pharma. That's like 30 pharma pens. That's nuts. But look, here's my takeaways. Don't be scared of these bro myths around HGH. Like, yeah, obviously you can die from taking too much, but are you ever going to take 30 pens? And like they almost saved his life. I mean, he almost made it, sort of. That's a stretch. But like, are you ever going to take 30 full pins? No, hell no. Nobody watching this is that stupid. Like, I'm sorry that this kid died, but that's the most idiotic thing I've ever heard. And like, that's crazy. But don't be scared of the bro myths around HGH. Like, it's incredibly safe. It's going to be really hard to take the lethal dose of HGH, but you need to be aware of how you tolerate the dosages. Always take the smallest dose possible. If you're taking a pen, take the smallest dose you can with the pen. If you're taking a vial, take the smallest dose you can. There's no rush. Like, don't rush it, man. Just take it day by day. Like, you don't have to rush it. Look for that water retention, the mineral retention, the high blood pressure. That's the first thing that's going to happen. That's what you're going to feel. So, like, that tingling in the fingers when you get so much water retention that's pushing on the nerves and your carpal tunnel and all that stuff going on. Keep that in mind, all right? And this is sort of the big thing I want to remind people is like, insulin, HGH, and testosterone, those 3 hormones, those are the most studied hormones in existence. Like, are ridiculous. You could spend the next 3 years looking at a study every day and you would not get to the end of it, all right? So we know, like, the dangers, the side effects, we know what's safe, all of that stuff around those 3 compounds. So in my opinion, knowing how safe they are and the fact that millions of people are taking them every day by prescription, why would you not at least try those first in a healthy clinical dosage before moving on to anabolic steroids? Like, why would you not? Because you're hitting that muscle growth pathway from different angles before just blasting yourself with some crap somebody made in their bathtub that you probably don't even fully understand, no offense. So, clean, safe. HGH, super safe. Insulin, even safer. Like, it's the safest, believe it or not, and I'll prove that in a video. But look, here's the takeaway. Taking 0.4% of the lethal dose 50 of HGH equals death. So that's what we found out here. So you do need to know this. Like, that's why I put it in here. That was the whole point of this video, is so you can know that, like, anything's possible if you take enough. But you have to remember the poison is in the dose, just like you always hear. I love that saying because it's totally true. You're not going to take 30 pins of HGH. Like, come on. It's not going to happen, okay? But look, and again, I'm gonna keep going back to this point right here. People will tell you to take something that's incredibly toxic on multiple organs, and it's not even approved for human use, with masculine side effects, virilization for women, all kinds of side effects with very little clinical literature to back it up. And I'm talking about steroids. They'll tell you to take that before trying HGH. What logical sense does that make to you? There's no logical sense to it. And like, this is the biggest bro myth that you need to actually think about. Everyone's telling you to take this and this, take this steroid, this one. And like, half of this shit, man, is like, It's in dosages that the clinical literature we do have, it's not even in that dose. So, like, why would you not try HGH first in a clinical dosage, 1 to 2 eggs at them, especially if you're a female? Like, if you're a female, why would you not? It's crazy. And it does all this other stuff that females love too, like your hair, your skin, all this stuff. It's amazing. Like, and lastly, you couldn't afford to overdose even if you wanted to. 30 I couldn't do it. Let's say that's $500. That's like $15,000 worth of pharmacy growth hormone. Why the hell would you take that before? Why would a pro take that? You couldn't afford it if you wanted to. All right. So, like, keep that in mind. Look at these takeaways, man. HGH is extremely safe. That's the point I want to get home, is it's super safe. And there's so many things out there that are not safe that bodybuilders are taking all the time. Take a look at HGH. Look up some studies. See what you think. Tell me if I'm way off on this. I would love to know if you think I'm just way out of bounds on this one. Leave a comment below. Please subscribe to the channel. It helped me out a lot. Like it. Leave some comments. Thanks.